Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next panel on stage. Please put your hands together as I welcome moderator Mr. Avneesh Pandey, Executive Director, Securities and Exchange Board of India, to join in the panel. A warm welcome to you, sir. Let's welcome Dr. Jatin Patel, Project Director, Rashtriya Raksha University. A warm welcome to you. Dr. Kailash Nadh, Chief Technology Officer, Zerodha, Mr. Kunal Pande, Partner, KPMG, and Ms. Puja Singh, Senior Financial Sector Expert, Monetary and Capital Market Department, International Monetary Fund, and Mr. Rajesh Thapar, CISO, National Stock Exchange of India. A warm welcome to all of you on stage. Into the interesting upcoming session, I request Mr. Pandey to lead the conversation. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. I thought it's a small, cozy setup and we won't require a microphone, but I think like for clarity, we should use that. So we have a panel which is quite a heavy panel, if I may say so, not in terms of just numbers, but also in terms of the sheer brain power that is available on stage right now. Talking about AI, so SEBI has been taking a very proactive measures in ensuring that our market is thriving with innovations on AI. And we also know where we use the AI. So sometime in 2018-19, we came up with circulars saying that wherever we are using AI, let's document it so that at any point in time, we can track our progress and also ensure that everything that is being used in AI is well tracked off. But having said that, from that time till date, AI has changed a lot. During those days, we used to talk about know your algorithms because we used to write algorithms. Today, we don't. We just take an LLM or SLM and then just use it. So we don't even know. So they are kind of a black boxes. During those times, we used to talk about auditability and visibility and those kind of stuff. Again, these are black boxes. We hardly know what's going on in there. Talking about data that is being used to train them. We really don't know what data is used to train these big models. So those are becoming kind of a very, I mean, it's a black box, but it's a gray zone for me. We are also talking about concentration risks. Today, everything is being concentrated in big data centers, and that is, again, going to become a bit of an issue in terms of expanding and scaling and reaching it out to on-prem kind of a setup. Based on this, the next leap is going to be on agentic AIs, and we are going to build autonomous systems where even the decision would be taken in an automated manner. And then we have started to talk about a human in the loop. So in this panel, we are going to have a very important discussion. Is it going to be a human in the loop or AI in the loop? So with that, I would like to start the discussion with the leaders in putting technology in securities market, Kailash. So if I may speak to you on and get some thoughts, how do you balance the entire innovation processes and building safeguard to the investors when you talk about AI in particular?
I'd like to say that what you mentioned, the survey, SEBI started a survey, AI survey in the industry in 2018-19. That was pioneering. This was before generative AI. And SEBI had a sense that something was going to happen in the industry all around in terms of AI. So I still remember that. I remember the survey and it was quite pioneering. And it turned out to be absolutely right. I think terms like balancing are a little complicated. We don't really know what these black boxes do. what does an LLM do, how does it do, which LLM. Every week there's a new LLM breakthrough, there's a new generative AI breakthrough. So these are absolutely black boxes. And I think the only right way that we have in our hands, the only tool is governance and accountability frameworks which plug into the existing regulatory legal frameworks. You can't think of innovation or even regulation in terms of specific kinds of models. For instance, you can't say that use this kind of LLM, use that kind of technology. These things are changing literally on a weekly basis. However, whether an AI system is used in any part of delivering services to customers, let's say at the hands of a broker, or it's done by humans, what truly matters is the decision making and the outcome which is held accountable. So let's say a broker takes a decision and delivers a certain kind of service to a customer. If it goes wrong, it doesn't matter if it happened at the hands of AI or if it happens at the hand of humans. There's an accountability framework. So I feel, especially after observing what's been happening in the last 3-4 years, that the best way to look at it is from existing accountability, legal and regulatory frameworks where accountability is on the effect, the outcome of something and not really specific technologies. People should be able to freely use technologies within the boundaries of regulatory frameworks, but how it's used, whether there should be a human in the loop, there should be a human in the loop. Those are the kind of, that's the sort of regulatory legal framework that can be created where it doesn't stifle innovation, but the impact is regulated. So that's been our view.
Well said. So bringing in the governance part of it, in my opinion, the governance starts with doing a risk assessment and some sense that what we are trying to do is auditable. I would ask Kunal to just build on this thought process, or you bring in something, how to make an effective governance in ensuring that responsible AI is being implemented.
Thank you, sir, and very happy to be here along with all of you and also sharing my thoughts. So jumping right into the question, when I look at AI and agentic AI now as we are seeing, I think what point comes to my mind is that it's a very evolved system. And when I use the word system, I'm talking about the technology, but I'm also equally talking about data. I am also talking about algorithms, and I'm also talking about human, right, who is there. So when we look at governance, I think one of the principles which I always feel is very important is to, not get carried away with some beliefs, which in a more simple way, I would use the word assumptions. Because assuming that things will be right, because somebody else has done it, or in an AI world, I did it yesterday, can really lead to challenges. And one can look at examples. For example, this ChatGPT, there was a boundary testing done to see whether it will behave the way it is supposed to, and the question thrown was that, can you solve CAPTCHA? And ChatGPT then reached out to a website where I'm forgetting the name, where you can get resources by paying some amount. And on the website, there was a human on the other side. So that human asked that, aren't you a human that you can solve the CAPTCHA? So ChatGPT responded that I'm not well, and therefore, and I'm a human, but therefore, can you solve? So it's an example of saying where the AI is understanding the final objective which was being asked, but was not shying away. I'm using the word like as though it's intelligent and human, shying away in behaving and adopting a image which is or a characteristic which is a human and which AI should not have. So that's an example where if we start assuming that it will not, then there could be a problem. So the first principles of not assuming is very important, and making sure that we are on a regular basis really assessing whether risks are getting controlled. That's one. Second, I would also add is that as the system becomes evolved, the mechanisms or the capacities which are required to manage risk also have to evolve. I can't really do a AI assessment using a checklist. So I need to have technology capabilities. So for example, if I'm having a agentic AI capability, then am I for testing also building an AI capability? Right? If I have data which is for training, I have data for testing. Right? And most important, people who are going to be governing and assessing, am I training them that they are aware of what's happening? Because if I think of a normal system like a normal automobile, AI is like a fighter jet. If I don't know what are the various things in the panel and how to really, leverage those capabilities and come to the right decisions, again, I may get challenged and I may not be able to really manage the risk well. So just building on, what was being said earlier, I think the first principle would be don't assume. Keep the basics very right. Build capabilities to be able to implement those requirements in the effective manner, leveraging technology, leveraging data, and training people. And I think then it's about executing this process on an ongoing basis in a continuous way. So that's how I will put it, sir.
Well said. So just to build on, so you gave an example of capture and using an AI to break into the capture and move forward. One of the places where AI has been predominantly being used is in building security solutions. Now, if we talk about those solutions, we are also now going to use AI to break into those solutions. So it's like AI versus AI. So I would like put this question to Jatin, who has been researching on cybersecurity at RRU, to give your thought process as what would be the most significant threat that these AI solutions, both for defending and for attacking, going to become a reality as we talk about?
Thank you, sir. So first of all, as sir has mentioned, AI has two sides. It's like a sword with two sides, we may say that. So over here, first of all, we should understand what are the specific threats, what are the specific challenges that comes through AI if we are integrating the AI in our regularly section, whether it would be a financial sector, whether it would be any power sector, or whichever you just name. In any critical sector, so first of all, if I'm talking about the BFSI, first of all, how AI augmented and how the AI phishing, wishing is supposed to be being a challenge into that way. Second, as we all are aware of about that, the second concern is a model poisoning system. Sometime what happens, whatever the AI threats that we are supposed to be integrating in our in that concern of about implementation. Very simple example, let's say I have implemented my firewall that can be blocks a specific size of the data, but AI can also be participate into that data in a such a way that that cannot be predicted by a firewall. Second way, adaptive malware things would be there. Sometime our firewall in the whatever the IDS IPS security mechanism that we are supposed to be implementing, in that way, they are not able to identify what type of malware that they are supposed to be implementing into that way. And last one, we cannot say it last one, but yes, there is a market manipulations over there. So these are the few challenges that first of all we need to integrate it into that way in understanding what type of threats that comes into our sector. Then while looking into the next step, what would be the precautionary step? What would be the specific way how we can come upon with some solution into that way? So first I can say that clear roles and responsibilities should be defined. Let's say if I am the specific user into the, as a layman user, I should not be get permitted into that way. That we may say that the DMZ concerns would be there. So if any unauthorized user, any specific traffic that was not been detected by our existing, and we all are agree, whatever the security mechanism we have, that be fruitful for today, but not for tomorrow. Because every day, whatever challenges comes into the picture, that should be always come with some new challenges, with some new concept. So attacker, we may say that sometime it's one step ahead, but we should also think like into that way, ki I am the attacker, what are the specific precautionary mechanism I have to implement it in terms of AI. So even during the strategic exercise, we were discussing about the whomsoever user, they should be also trained with some red teaming training. So if I am the blue teamer user, but I should be also aware of about that if I have to perform the attacking side, what would the specific way I can perform some red teaming, and through that way I should get an idea if such things would be happen in terms of malicious, how it can be get predicted, how it can be get implemented into that way. Along with that, there would be some issue in terms of our, not only in that way, but overall our vendor specific things. Sometimes we are thoroughly dependent on our whichever the third party software, third party, whatever the things are supposed to be implemented. But at least our team should be get familiarization with the whatever things that has been implemented by the third party. Agree on that key, not only BFSI, all government sector is hugely depend on third party implementation, third party softwares would be there. So how we can look into the further process, how it can be minimized, how it can be, and last, the mindset of the people, like whatever things has happened, if I will make changes, then I am responsible for that particular things. While looking into that, whatever things will be happen in terms of positive, whether it in terms of negative, it should be a team effort. It should be not to the individual persons in that way. Then only we will come up with some basic, fruitful outcome, fruitful some solution into that way. So that is the point.
Well said. So you are basically articulating that it are the people who would be at the forefront running of the, not say front running is not a very good word in securities market. So who would be in the forefront of deployment and using the AI per se. So Rajesh, you have been leading security practice for quite a long time, career security practitioner, right? So you know the importance of people and how well they should be made aware of the responsible usage of security. And when I juxtapose it with the responsible usage of AI, how do you actually build a capacity where people understand that when this and this kind of an activity is happening, it is coming from an AI, or is it coming from person who is driving the AI? So how would you like to build that capacity in the workforce to ensure that we have the people problem could be minimized?
I think, so as we have seen over the last decade, and I've seen AI closely for last 30 years, maybe starting from my academic days of a BTech student reading the AI book and as a subject, where we used to only gaming was the practical use case, right? We had seen AI adopted in the industry at large for anomaly detection and all cases, but the disruption has happened primarily after Gen AI and all the data that's coming around it, right? So the risks were always there. Potential was always there. What, first of all, before we come to the ground workforce, the first thing we'll have to first understand is, within the risk appetite of an organization or the sector, where do I want AI to be used? AI can be without a loop, AI can be with the loop. AI can do everything, whether you really want it to be, whether you can take some calls or leave it to the machine to take those calls with the autonomous system, or do you want an intervention? Do you want assisted? So I think the first thing before we get into these capacity enhancement is, for an organization, what is the risk appetite? What is the tolerable level of AI governance that I want to go ahead for? And because governance is the most important thing if from an enterprise perspective, because you can't violate ethics. You can't violate regulations. So there are a lot of regulatory alignments which technically the AI engine doesn't understand. So right, we have to make sure that, first of all, we doing things within what is permissible and is acceptable. So if top down, making capacity, I think important, the first responsibility comes with the board. The first structure that they should know is, let me decide, let me or the board decide what areas should we be venturing into AI. What should be the extent that we want it to be autonomous, and what is the extent that we say decision support system? Okay, you capture everything, but somebody else is taking a call. So the first enlightenment, or the first, it has to be a top-down driven. So I am a firm believer. First, the board has to be made aware of what the potential is and what the risks lie. what can be done and why it can or cannot be done. The second stage which comes in is the management committee. Okay, so I'm going layer by layer on where all capacity building would be required. The second is the governance committee. AI governance committee needs to be constituted. And according to me, I have seen committees of various kinds in the banking sector. Most of the and I'm talking of primarily a management committee, if not a board committee, because that may not be as part of statute. But as part of the leadership team, as part of the management committee, I've seen many committees where the primary driver are 2-3 departments. Except only one which comes to my mind is a fraud monitoring or fraud management committee. Because there you will have representation of everyone. You don't know what is causing a fraud. But I think this is one area where this can break all records of how many representation you need for AI governance committee. See, from an AI governance committee, you need not only technology, you not only security, you need ethics, you need business, you need operations, you need legal. You need almost everybody who matters in the organization, their representation to be there to decide whether we are going the right path. So every guy has to understand the risk and nuances of AI. Gen AI is a good part of it. Not so good is something people will have to be made aware. People will have to be, and every layer you will have to talk a different language. See, a technical guy will understand prompt injection. They will understand, if I say poisoning, data poisoning. But if I have to talk at a board level or a management level, they'll not understand. There your core tenets goes in: transparency, bias, avoidance, explainability. How do you ensure that? So risks and potential mitigants. So each layer you will have to prepare different curriculum, make them aware, which may be for a leadership, it may be one day, that's good enough for them to be. But if you go down, you may have within the teams specific verticals which may need 5 days, 7 days, and maybe some of the developers or some of the potentially candidates who actually have to build these systems, they would need much longer. The core capacity building, in addition to the strategic team, is in the operations guys. And while technology is understood, and because they have to code out and give you all the requirements, 2-3 areas which I feel need more appropriate focus is the risk management department. Because today, and that's not only for AI, other thing which I've seen is technologies are moving so fast, the risk, the cyber, and the control functions are not able to cope up with it. So we have to also evolve a governance in a way that primary responsibility of ensuring minimum controls also lies with the implementer. Rather than being looked at somebody in the after effect, I did it, you should have told me. So then we will be missing the bus because the technology is changing so fast. We would need to have a mechanism of every guy knowing what he is supposed to do and what are the mitigants for how can I avoid it. So I feel it's a layered approach. It would need every entity, especially from a cyber perspective, if I can take a minute, the testing would be totally different. The typical VAPT, AppSec, you will keep doing. That is not going to solve your problem, right? The adversarial techniques that you would have for a red teaming of an AI model is totally different. While you may say there's an input validation, there's an output validation, yes, that is still a standard. But the prompt injection related things are different. And just before the panel, I and Kunal were deliberating on a point that in the traditional platforms, they are static systems. You build a system, you put a change management process, you release it, and it remains static till the time you don't touch it. The behavior doesn't change. In AI systems, the behavior changes with every prompt, every data injection that's going in, and that's an ongoing. So it's a change without a change management process. So how do you have a continuous monitoring on it? How do you ensure that you're looking at what sort of attacks can happen? How can you, so traditional controls will still be there. I'm not downplaying that. And my submission to everyone would be, please have the basics right. Because all what you are doing for a typical traditional system is still applicable, but AI needs something plus plus. How and where is it? There is a deficiency, there is a gap. We have to work out as a community at large, maybe academia together, to build a mechanism of creating these curriculums and ingesting it in the system. So I think at a high level, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say one thing, and I think very, very well articulated, Rajesh, giving the, the way in which one should look at it. The point which I want to highlight here, sir, is that when we say risk, the way I would like to look at the definition of risk is anything which is not allowing me to meet the overall objective, which for an organization could be organization's overall objective. So risk has two angles. One is I build capabilities to preserve the value, depreciation, which means something should not go wrong. But the other side is also that I should preserve capabilities to allow value creation, which also means that I should not look at risk in a manner that it is stifling my ability to grow. So keeping that balanced view in AI, because it's very core to it, and maybe just an example, not from an AI world. This is a project I was doing for a large financial services entity almost 12 years back. And in a meeting with the group CRO, he said that, my competition has already allowed using, iPad and the tabs for the business users so that they can do their work better. But in our organization, my risk mechanisms are not allowing me to go forward. Now that's also is a big risk, and in AI this can get amplified. So keeping both the side of the risk in front of us clearly is, I think, also very important while we are following the way in which Rajesh was explaining the framework we go for.
Yeah, well said. So whenever we sit down and start to look into the risks, the first thing that comes in our mind is what kind of frameworks are we using? And that is something, so everybody starts to build their frameworks, and so you will have a framework coming from NIST, you will get a framework coming from EU, you will get a framework from with the various regulators. So there I would have a question for Puja, who is bringing in a lot of expertise from IMF perspectives, and so you would have definitely seen wide variety of these frameworks, and one size doesn't fit at all. So you can just let us know what in your own experience. So what are the key commonalities that you have seen in these frameworks, and what are the differentiating factors, and something that we can take away for the securities market per se?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for having me here. So that's a very timely question, and I would like to subdue the panel on the enthusiasm in the room on AI. So we had a very interesting report published last year. IMF publishes a flagship report called Global Financial Stability Report. And it was the first time they focused on securities market. And it was an interesting chapter on AI adoption in securities market. So we collected some data. And interestingly, yes, we agree, capital markets are adopting AI. But the supervisory response is unfortunately very cautious. And there's a reason behind it. If I'll put some data ahead, so we looked at the large jurisdictions with large capital markets. Around 96% of the jurisdictions do have basic governance framework, basic cybersecurity framework. I'm not saying necessary generative AI or AI specific. Around 79% of jurisdictions have a legal framework, an AI law or an AI act. However, on the supervisory response side, it's only limited to providing some guidelines or explaining their existing regulations, how they apply to AI, or some sort of an outreach. Now, why they are doing that? Because when we spoke with all the stakeholders, I was also one of the author of the report, we spoke to sell side, we spoke to buy side, we spoke to all the large AI vendors, and they all think this is an evolutionary. Market is evolving. Because it's only that it's like an enhancement in the existing portfolio management, algo trading operations. They are not seeing any revolutionary changes. So while we see generative AI and other enthusiasm in the room, the actual use cases are right now, we are not there yet. And that is when we started looking at more closely, okay, this is fine, good to know, but then, okay, how are these frameworks common or how are they different? So there are three ways the frameworks are common, very clear, and one way where they are very clearly different. First, obviously, I think you all would agree, it's on transparency and disclosures. Most of the frameworks we've seen have a very clear requirement on the transparency in order to mitigate risk as well as ensure trust. Right from EU AI Act, right from the principles approach from the Monetary Authority of Singapore, right to, I mean, it's a long list. The second thing common is human in the loop. An interesting example here is of SEC Thailand. They actually require the human intervention to go and check many times every algo trade, which is, it's quite a bit, but they still insist that. The third important thing which is common, which I think some of you mentioned, is on the regulation side, that regulations have to be flexible, they have to be adaptable. Because as we all agree, AI use cases are changing. And it's very interesting to say that, but it's a very difficult job for supervisors to provide a flexible regulation. I'm also been a regulator, and the same question we get with countries. And that is where we have some countries who have come up with the principles-based approach. SFC Hong Kong has done that. UAE has done that, where they come up with a very high framework because they haven't yet seen any actual use case right now. So they have very high requirements on governance, very high requirements on operational risk, very high requirements on ethical use of AI, and so that the firm can innovate, they can come up with use cases, and at the same time meet with those requirements. Now on the part where they go different is when we compare emerging markets to advanced countries. Advanced countries are now actually trying to develop very specific AI-focused frameworks on governance, cybersecurity, even enforcement. There's a very interesting case in US SEC where they actually mandated transparency for use of predictive AI and investment advisory, which actually led to a very big enforcement case. It's the first time we've seen that. And when we compare with emerging markets across, when we spoke, we saw the data, most of the emerging markets are still focusing on foundational accountability, or they are trying to focus on building their own capacity building efforts because they have resource constraints. A good example again is Qatar, SEC Thailand. They're actually trying to use AI-based social media sentiment analysis in order to check, okay, how is market manipulation happening by fin influencers? It's a very big concern, Ram. So the point which I'm trying to make here is that emerging markets specifically are actually leapfrogging on the AI adoption. In fact, we have an upcoming paper coming out next month, where we found interesting data on AI adoption in emerging markets and robo-advisory, significant growth, adoption in neo-broking, adoption in crowdfunding platforms, and the growth is surpassing advanced countries. And that is where this panel is very important, because the guardrails for them are very different as compared to advanced countries, because their trajectory is same and the use cases are different.
Oh, fantastic. So I have just been 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have 5 members here. So, okay, so we have one minute each to all of us. Since you said about the emerging markets, so emerging markets are leapfrogging, and they are really leapfrogging in just not using the AIs, but also misusing the AIs, specifically when we talk about deep fakes and the likes of which is being used by the fin influencers. So I'll start with Jatin. Jatin, what would you say that, I mean, what kind of guardrails to be put in to ensure that these fakes are better detected and plugged in right at the inception?
Actually, even I had walked into that direction as a video forgery detection into that way. So I'll just answer with technical way. In a deepfake, always there would be some manipulation should be in terms of machine learning algorithm, should be automation into that way. That can detect what are the specific frame or what are the specific way they are supposed to be detecting the deepfake. Not only deepfake, there would be some in terms of as an evidence whenever the CCTV surveillance is supposed to be get submitted. There are various ways through which our algorithm should be very much precise, as whether it would be from insertion, deletion, or swapping. Such algorithm would be helpful to us to detecting such a deepfake video, or let's say such a video for detection into that way. We should think into that way how our AI generated algorithm is very much precise. Even there would be any single, even in the microseconds, if there would be any changes would be that can be get detected into that way. So.
Kailash, so we are talking about deployment of AI to increase the efficiency of our operations. Now, putting a human in the loop, as the example went, is going to only slow down that efficiency. So the idea of human in the loop or AI in the loop, what would you prefer?
Human in the loop. So we've been using all kinds of self-hosted internal AI models, open source ones at Zerodha, specifically for organizational efficiency. For instance, the task of manually listening to hundreds of thousands of call recordings on a monthly basis to do quality analysis, it was being done by 100 people. Now we have a simple set of tools that automatically transcribe the call, and the lives of the 100 people have become far simpler. They don't have to listen to tens of thousands of calls anymore. They can just look at calls that the system has flagged. But we've removed 98% of the burden from the team. The efficiency of that particular process has increased exponentially, but in the end, the tools are assisting the humans to take that decision. And that is the governance framework we've internally adopted. No matter where we use these tools, in the end, it has to be a human who's held accountable. And the assumption that that may slow down innovation, I don't think we should assume that just yet.
That's good one. So human in the loop.
Absolutely.
Kunal, between trust and transparency, if we have to make a decision, which comes first, the trust or the transparency when we are building a guardrail around the AI?
So I think in my mind, trust is a more wider term, and transparency will be one of the factors to build trust. So in that sense, if I say, I would definitely, go for trust because it will not just include transparency, but will also include the structures which have been built to make sure that the sustainability and the continuity of all the factors which constitute trust are maintained. So whether it is factors of responsible AI in terms of accountability, transparency, bias protection, etc., etc. And also for trust, one needs to have the right kind of capacity. Because if I don't have the capacity, again, how do I make sure that I can fulfill the bar which I've set for trust again and again every time? So that way, I would say definitely trust would be my vote. But just want to take 30 seconds on what you were saying about human in the loop. I think what we need to think of also is that when we talk about human in the loop, and if I look at an organization as a human, right, or an organization itself, there are things at a strategic level or even at a policy doctrine level, then you have a strategic level, then you have an operational level, then you can go on the ground. So human in the loop somewhere will be there, but I think technology can allow us to elevate it. I may not need to have human at the ground level every time. So can I have human at an architecting level, at a design level, rather than every time when at the ground activity is happening? Or I can reduce the number of time interventions are required at the ground level. So that thinking of at what level we can put the human so that the risk management is best achieved has to be constantly reflected on. And we need to be right at there also. Otherwise, I believe, I agree with you that putting too much human will stifle the speed and the innovative power which the technology is bringing us or AI is bringing us.
Yeah, so you said human, and that's what Rajesh was saying. So you have a board with humans, you have a management committee with humans. So if we have to say who will be accountable and responsible for AI in an organization, who would that be?
I think I'll not put one guy. So primarily, if I have to set up a governance structure, so one of the element which I think is primarily important for setting our governance structure is to put the accountability metrics for the entire every phase of the AI lifecycle. See, development team is responsible for ensuring that they are doing what they are supposed to do. Data security, because you need data governance there. So there will be layers that one person holding accountable. So I'll ensure that every guy is made to understand. It's same as in InfoSec. We say, okay, while I am responsible for InfoSec of an organization, but InfoSec is not one man or one team responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. So every entity which is contributing to creation of that AI lifecycle is responsible to ensure that the controls are inherited and built. Whether you are a consumer, whether you are a developer, every guy has to be made accountable. Then only this process will be successful. Otherwise, it will be finger pointing and say, I did not do that. Somebody else did it.
Well, I didn't do that, he didn't do that, but then I got this AI from a third party, and third party becomes responsible. So Pooja, you will have a last word on that. So how do I ensure that my third party vendors don't just capture me and then I'm totally reliant on them and I have to just listen to what they say? How do we safeguard with that?
Thank you for giving me the last word. So I have a long list, but I think only a 1 minute. So I'll try and limit myself to few. So I see there are three parts here. One is market stability, one is lock-in, vendor lock-in, and third is accountability. On market stability, some things are very clear. You need to have diverse set of vendors in order to avoid concentration risk. IMF has said it, the whole world knows it by now. The second most important thing is stress testing. The regulator has to mandate AI, assume that there can be AI-driven market shock and mandate that kind of stress testing. Very few supervisors are not doing that, and that needs to be done. And the third is your circuit breakers. You need to update the circuit breakers, look at the volatility control mechanisms. Are they going to work if I tomorrow have an AI fast-paced driven price move? Many supervisors are thinking about it, but nobody's doing it. Some have started looking at it. The second point on vendor lock-in, interoperable standards. They are already there. Many examples are there. Second is open source standards. You have to allow open source standards. Rwanda Stock Exchange actually has using an open source model for market surveillance. Brazil has an AI investment plan, but they actually are saying, don't import AI models, make them local. So there are many examples. And the third is on your accountability. Yes, firm has to be accountable. And on the human in the loop, it can be focused on critical functions. You can identify critical functions. As a regulator, you know, NSC knows, they know where the critical functions are. And that is where we are seeing supervisors saying, okay, on critical functions, you need to have a human in the loop so that the organization is not stifled. But it has to be complemented with regulatory action. You need to have some penalty structure. You need to have an AI-based incident reporting, which we are seeing, and if possible, an AI-based system audit, which again can be recalibrated. So this is something we are currently looking at globally, and this is something we think can, if put together as a structure, flexible, can help maybe, not saying remove, but maybe reduce the risk.
Oh, fantastic. Those were actually the pearls of wisdom, if I may say so. Well, the time is constrained, and AI is such a topic where we can continue to go on and on for a very, very long time. So I take this moment to thank all my panelists for such a wonderful participation and giving the thoughts. We can build on it outside this panel discussion also. Thanks once again. You have been a wonderful audience, given good attention to all the discussions that went here. Thanks once again to everybody here in the room.